Hey, this is Sanyam Bhutani, and you're listening to Chai Time Data Science, a podcast for data science enthusiasts where I interview practitioners, researchers, and Kagglers about their journey, experience, and talk all things about data science. Welcome to Chai with the best Fastai contributors and creators, CTDS.Show. In this episode, I got to interview the professor. Yes, please call him as the professor and tell him that I told you to do that. Zachary Mueller, Fastai expert, Fastai moderator, Fastai course creator. He's created a course that's titled Walk with Fastai. Do check it out. It's one of the most welcoming introductions to the API and deep learning. Use it as an entry point into fast AI world or just as a supplementary material. I've really enjoyed it. I'm still in the middle of the materials, but would highly recommend it. This episode is part 2 of our conversation and continues off of that. We discuss what Zach has learned by practically, actually quite literally, living on the forums for 3 years, 2 or 3 years at this point, and from living literally on the repo, what he's learned by contributing to the forums, to the repo, to the code, and to his own course, Walk with Fast A2. Zach has also written quite a few amazing blog posts, which I would also encourage you to check out. We dive into his process of creating these blog posts and what he's learned out of it, his general advices to everyone on the forums. Zach's journey in Fast AI, similar to any Fast AI practitioner who sets their mind to doing Fast AI and contributing to it religiously, has been very inspiring. I'm sure anyone from the forum recognizes him as the AGI who never sleeps on the forum, replies in a second, and always knows the answers. So I hope you're as excited about this interview as I am. Without further ado, here's the conversation. Please enjoy the show. I'm on the call with one of world's experts on Fast AI, moderator, contributor, also course creator, the professor Zach Mueller. Zach, thanks so much for joining me again on the podcast.
Same. Thanks for having me again. It's a lot of fun being on here.
Yeah, I'll keep addressing you as the professor, even if that's not all right.
Okay,
I don't
yes.
care.
Oh, all right. Let's get this through.
So I've asked this to you earlier as well, but I know your perspective has changed a bit. How did you do Fast AI? And this entails in the sense that things that were effective, any advices that you'd have to yourself. How did you do Fast AI, and how would you suggest doing it?
So I kind of explored rabbit holes as I went through the course. So I briefly mentioned in the last interview how I didn't really finish the first course for a year just because I went on, so many different tangents and experimenting and trying different things. And, in the last year since that really hasn't changed. My perspective of doing Fast AI has always been break it and then fix it so you know how it works.
Hmm.
So, let's say, for example, I was trying to build, some data loaders for this project, and everything was breaking. Summary was breaking, and that can give me, a general debug of what's going on. Where the heck do I go from there? It kind of exploring, okay, well, what does getX do? What does, getY do? How are my transforms working and all of that? Going down these little rabbit holes helps you understand the big picture and really helps you understand how this framework really works rather than just, oh yeah, here's, data loaders, data block. I don't necessarily know what all of it's doing, but I kind of know. When you break things, you learn the most, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So how do you get to the point of breaking things? Many people, they just look at the course, they're like, I don't know what to do after the lecture. And you had these ideas. How do you get to that point where you can break things and understand what did you break?
Let's try and find an example. I guess the first thing I did was do something completely different than the course offered, which for a lot of people, that's really hard to break through because you sit there and go, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of old Fastai notebooks that have never been updated that you can play with. The code will never work because it's designed for Fastai version 1 or Fastai version 0.7. And so for a fact it's not going to work in version 2. And so you go through and you try and upgrade that code. I know I had this issue whenever I was doing the style transfer notebook back in my course. I was dealing with the fact that my models weren't quite working. I kept getting like neural net conv 2D isn't indexable and stuff like that, which at first you would think, oh, it's Fastai breaking things. Don't limit yourself to that train of thought. A lot of times it might actually be PyTorch. And so what winds up happening is, okay, well, I had this issue upgrading from there, but it's a PyTorch model, so it's a PyTorch issue. And so I go explore the PyTorch realm, see how that's all working. And now I've fixed my issue. I've maybe finished updating the style transfer notebook, and I know more about PyTorch. And so it's this sort of cross-contamination that gets you, really good at fast AI while also understanding, okay, here's some PyTorch things I understand now.
So any mistakes that you would suggest anyone to refrain from? Any mistakes you think you've made that you wouldn't want to?
Understand your limits. And, there was a good comment on the Fast AI Discord the other day. And it's, if I'm going through problems now and it takes me an hour to solve it, that would be the equivalent of someone new spending a day or spending 6 hours.
Probably more than that.
Yes, let's go with that. You need to understand and look at the problem, go a little bit into it, and then if you're not really making headway, that's the time to ask for help, because that can either mean you don't know enough, you're thinking of the wrong approach, or there's something else finicky. It could just be a bug. I mean, I've tried to implement something, couldn't get anywhere. This is actually yesterday. Couldn't get anywhere. It was a bug in the framework. Which, what do you know? There's an active PR to fix it. And so it might not just be you.
You mentioned, and to the people, Zach has practically lived on the forums. This is a quote from him from the previous interview. For the past 3 years, he's lived practically in the code base. So he really means what he just said. Have you seen any questions that are repetitive? Any, let's say, let's use this interview as a FAQ for your questions, because I know you answer all of them. Any common themes that you see on the forums?
Common things that I've seen on the forums. If you get dimension mismatches, you didn't resize your images in your item transforms. For the love of everything, item transforms, their sole purpose is to make sure that your batches, or that your individual items are all ready to be pushed to a batch. That means your images are all the same size, your text are all padded the same, whatever that winds up being. That is a very common one, and it's a very easy mistake to do. Oh dear, what else has there been? If you're using Colab, make sure your runtime is set to GPU.
That's a good one.
That's the easy one. Oh, what other ones have there been? Have you thought of any other ones that you've seen?
The ones that I answer are mostly around should I do X? How should I do X? All of the ones that have the same answers. And for the audience, this is not us being disrespectful to anyone. We're just trying to put this into a video so that we can just point them to that, and I can get some
I
views
got a
out
good
of it.
one. To get predictions, you use test data loaders. You just pass your items, whether they're file names or raw images, into the test data loader. You pass that data loader to get predictions, and you're on your way.
That's a good one.
I've made like 30 examples of this, but that's okay. I think that's most of them.
Yeah, I can't think of any others as well. Um, there are a few around. So I'm more involved in the community, as probably the audience knows, and as you know, the most common question is, can I join a group? Can I do X? And when this is related to meetup or events, just take, don't ask, take the lead. People will join by default. That's how it goes. There's no, it's better to apologize later than to seek permission, because that'll just slow things down. And we don't gatekeep anything here in Fastai land.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, that's why I did my course. You know, it was no one at my university had ever even heard of Fast AI. You know, it was brand new, and so I just started a study group, and here I am. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between just study group and here. But I'm saying when I started that study group, I didn't really know anything about Fast AI. I had finished the first 3 lectures. As you do the study group, you learn a lot more just from the fact that you're leading it. And so you kind of have to be, you know, on the up and up about the conversations you want for the week. And so it literally forces you and gives you a motivator to finish this course that necessarily doesn't have an end date. You
Called
suddenly
walk.
set yourself. What's
Certainly.
up?
It's called Walk with Fastai too, for people that are unaware. One of the best resources that lives outside the Fastai repo. Do check it out. It's slightly easier to approach, much more intuitive. Has some comments, not a lot, because Zach doesn't leave a lot of comments, but there are some.
Thank you. Yeah, it was Walk with Fast AI was, or at least Walk with Fast AI 2 was it was my first teaching approach. So there's definitely things I would redo about that, but it was fun, honestly.
What's the process been like for you? We've talked about this very briefly in the previous interview, and you were just about to start at that point. What's the process of creating these lectures, and what's something unexpected that came out of it, just from teaching these lectures?
Generally, I started out just by making a list of, okay, what are the most common questions and implementations that people want to see in the new framework? What did they have problems with in version 1? And so, you know, the first things were the RetinaNet notebook, style transfer, translation, you know, multiple key points. And so I had this list of like 35 notebooks that I knew I wanted to get done. And so I started working on it for, I think, like a month or two was basically the buildup that I gave myself in time to get as far as I could. And so the way that you tackle that is you start with the super easy notebooks. You don't go to the hard. You get the easy stuff done, and then you get the stuff that's probably a little bit more challenging, and then you leave the other stuff to the end. But you give yourself a little safety bubble with a little asterisk that says we're going to try this. Might not get to it, but it's something I want to try. And so that kind of works like a double-edged sword, because if you don't get it, people might be a little disappointed. But you know, at the other time, you did try, and so you can revisit it later. And that was basically the approach that I did. I had I want to say the first 6 lectures of vision done before the course began. And then after I finished the last lecture, I started my tabular notebooks. Actually, I think I started the tabular notebooks like the 3rd weekend. But basically, you just iterately deal with every single notebook, every single problem. And my approach to writing notebooks is write enough information for them to understand what's going on. You know, that is a comment. It's, you know, my notebooks are very, you know, thoroughly done. They're very well explained. And the reason is I want someone to be able to look at my notebook and either have one of two assumptions. If it's, the second part of a lecture. So for example, that would have been, I think, the key points in like object detection. I would safely assume that they probably watched the first one or at least read that first notebook. And so anything explained in that first notebook, I wouldn't necessarily delve into. But anything new that popped up in there, I explained very thoroughly. I explained, these are the data loaders. This is how we're grabbing our data every single time. And honestly, that little cookie cutter approach can really improve the quality of your notebooks. And a lot of people kind of skip over that. They just think it's assumed, but I mean, I've read, some Fastai, notebooks where it's, they don't explain anything that's going on. They just say, I'm getting the data. And that's cool. But the people that are reading your notebook can learn a lot just by understanding here's how your data is structured, here's what you did.
Just the promise of literate programming. And for the audience, I was just joking. Zach and I have this constant back and forth offline where I keep asking him to add more pros. He keeps skipping it, and something okay comes out of it. I hope everyone has enjoyed the course, of course. Um, it's a similar approach for your blog posts as well. And we've discussed this online as well. How do these start, and what's the process like for you today?
Oh boy. Well, blog posts, I try and do when I can. Since I did start like Walk with Fast AI now, which is sort of my little next step with Walk with Fast AI 2, sort of taking everything online to a general shared resource. The blog themselves has kind of been left to little experiments and ideas. And so whenever I'm doing blogs like that, it's okay. I need to make sure that I understand what the audience knows by now. So when I write blogs, I generally don't write them from the perspective of someone just started the course last week. I start them from the perspective of, maybe they've been doing the course for 3 months, 2 months now or something. They're like 2 or 3 lectures in. And so they kind of understand what's going on. So you don't necessarily, delve into here's a neural network, here's XYZ of that neural network. Here's this optimizer and what it's doing. You go, okay, here's the general problem. Here's how my data set up. Here's, how I built my data loaders. Here's my model, why I chose the model, and then, go into training and all that stuff. The meat and potatoes generally of every single article that someone would do or what I do is that how's the data set up and how do you set up the data loaders. There are obviously exceptions to that for, say if you're doing like, semi-supervised learning or self-supervised learning where it's, now it's a big focus on the training loop, but you focus a lot on what you're trying to do. You don't try and go off of that path, which is really, really easy to do. It's very, very easy to sit there and go, here's my data, yada, yada, yada. Here's my learner. Here's every single value I'm passing into the learner and what every single one of it does. And then, learning rate finder, what all of it does, and so on and so forth. If you make zero assumptions about your reader, then your article becomes very bulky and it becomes very boring. Make sure you have good assumptions and it makes it a lot more enjoyable to read.
Thinking in terms of content, there's also this I would say, at least I face this struggle where it can be too basic or it can be too advanced. How do you find that balance, where it's just the right thing for someone who's reading it, and it's not too basic, not too far advanced?
That really comes down to your vision of who you want reading this. Like if it's a beginner article, in my head, like, it's, hey, this is a good introductory, then I will absolutely, go into a little bit more detail than I maybe normally would. I might actually say, here's what CNN Learner is doing. Here's, why I chose cross entropy loss. Briefly, not too much into detail because it is, beginner. We want to surface level that
Makes
and
sense.
not get them overwhelmed. And the best is I can write two of the same articles with the exact same code, and one can be beginner focused and one can be advanced focused. And what will make the difference there is how I describe what my setup is. And I guess that's really the key. The the best thing for you to do is if you find a friend or just post it on the Fastai forums, straight up shoot them your article before you publish it and just say, is this enough detail? Is this not? What do you think? I do that to Sanyam literally every single article. But honestly, though, it helps because you understand it from your perspective, but really having that outward perspective of, hey, is this maybe too many assumptions I'm seeing? Did I skip something? Did I miss something? You'd be amazed at how often you actually do that. And so, the easiest example is or the easiest way to do that if you're, alone or you've never really touched the forums, join the Discord and honestly just go like, hey, can someone read this over for me real quick? I'm thinking of publishing it, but I want to make sure it makes sense. We're a very welcoming community, and I'm very happy that I can say that. And someone will read it and give you feedback, and it's really, really helpful and awesome that we have this little place where you can feel safe, throwing up something experimental and say, tell me what you think.
Can you believe it? 2020 is already over, and that's all right. But what I wanted to point out is all of us are hanging out in the Discord. Some of us in the forums, some of us in both, and it's an active community, and people are always happy to help. To your point, even articles in Distil Pub, even research papers are also reviewed by other people before going out. So it's not literally asking for a favor. It's a pretty common thing to do just to make sure that your work that you're putting out, which is your work, it can lead to opportunities, and we'll talk about this. Uh, can help with a little bit of polish. It can go a long way with some polish.
Absolutely. Like probably the biggest example that I can think of was right when Jeremy was announcing the release of Fastai version 2.0. I made two articles called Zero to Hero with Fast AI. And the intermediate article was very, very easy for me to write because it was, the high high level, I call it medium level, data block API and sort of how all that's working, explain it from a medium level perspective because that's where I lived. But going into a much higher level perspective for the beginners was extremely challenging for me, I found. Just trying to make sure that you simplify everything you need to. And so that article definitely made too many assumptions. And I got called out for that, and it was a wonderful experience.
I don't think that
Because
was me though.
no, it was Jeremy. It was Jeremy that did that. But it really sort of solidified that just perspective, of well, what's too much, what's too little. And I guess the key answer to that would be write it. I never revise my notebooks. Fun fact. Everything that you see is mostly my first attempt. Now, what that means though is I will write it once, never look at it again, send it to someone else, and just say, hey, is there anything noticeable wrong here? And then I'll make edits because that second perspective is the most crucial part whenever you're writing this sort of stuff because that's your audience, and if your audience isn't tailored to it, then change what you're writing.
It's also an iterative process, and as you go about it, as an educator, I'm just speculating here. Zach does a much better job. I don't do anything in this end, any interesting extent. You start to get a better understanding of your audience or the audience that you want to write for, and you don't need as much feedback eventually after a few iterations.
Absolutely. I mean, I've done numerous blog posts at this point and a few walk with fast AI lecture articles, and once you really find that balance, it no longer becomes, a question of, did I make too many assumptions here? It's just, you know, oh, very quickly, did I miss this one little thing? Or did I miss this other tiny little thing? Because everything else becomes pretty polished very, very quickly. And the other thing
Definitely.
I will say that has helped me is don't pressure yourself into blogs. Don't pressure yourself into writing, every single week or every single month. I did every single month, and I managed to hit that except for like I think November. I don't think I did one this month, and I don't think I did one last month. But pressuring yourself into doing that winds up making it detrimental to the writing process, I found, because you get really stressed, and then all of a sudden, if it's not enough time, you overshot your estimate or undershot your estimate of how much time it would take. You don't really want to write the article anymore.
I think that there could be a balance also, like having some
Definitely.
okay deadlines. One a month is not a lot of work, and it could still be a good article.
Absolutely. No, once a month is a very, very good balance. I did it for almost 10 months straight, where I was pushing an article out onto my blog, and it worked really well. Now, did it take me a month to write those articles at a time? No. Sometimes it took me a day, sometimes it took me 3 weeks. But, that 1 month, as you said, Saeem, is actually a really good sort of balance. And I guess my key point there is don't get upset at yourself if you didn't publish it in the month. Just roll it over to the next month. You know, it, you're not likely you're not getting paid to do this. You are doing this for fun. You're doing this as a hobby. You're doing this to, build your resume.
If you're
And
getting
so,
paid, well, do more. Then no one's
oh yeah,
stopping you.
if you're getting paid, then oh, absolutely, have at it. But like, it is your project. This is something you can say you're doing, and so just make sure that it's the best that you can relatively have it before you go push it out, because people will always critique what you're doing the moment you put it out on the internet. And so it's better to just make sure you have your all your T's crossed and your I's dotted before it just goes out there.
Absolutely. And the deadline, and this is not to discourage anyone, some lazy people like me wouldn't end up putting anything out. So for me, the deadlines work. If you're not like that, don't do it. Zach's raising his hand. Um, but also, when you're starting out, you look at other articles, they're pretty impressive. You start with something basic, which is something that's really encouraged, but improve on that. Don't stick to that because you'd like to explore other areas also. Initially it's totally fine. The same article might take you a month, later you can do it in a day. So it's also about what you end up doing in the other 29 days. So Zach's helping out in the community, on the forums, in the github repo, and he gets an idea, and that's how the blog post comes about. But he's been doing other stuff for those days.
The other thing I'll say is one very big question and problem I've seen with people that want to write articles is they're afraid of repeating someone else. Don't. Like, yes, imposter syndrome is very, very real. I suffer from it. I'm sure you suffer from it, Saeem. Everyone suffers from it in this community. And that's not a bad thing. It's because we all build upon what everyone else has already done. That's in this case, that's kind of a good thing. It's a healthy thing as long as you don't like get obsessed over it.
Unless
And
someone from the audience writes CUDA code in C++, we'd like to meet you someday.
oh boy, please. No, but so like let's say I wrote an article about doing inference, where it's just a very, very easy, here's a test data loader, here's what it does, this is one that I did right, and here's how you use it. That doesn't then, gatekeep everyone else from writing that article. It in my experience, half of writing the article is learning about what you're writing about. You don't necessarily write over something you write on something you're curious about. And so, like, you could write almost the exact same article that I did for test data loaders. But the key is you going through that process helped you understand it better. You might have figured out something a little different than what I did. And at the end of the day, you wrote your own article that you have published somewhere. You don't have to, say, oh, I got this idea from Zach. Like, yeah, that's cool. You can reference whoever you got the idea from if you want, but try and make it your own while also, not obsessing over publishing the article. It's the article in itself is you learning. And that's what's important. That's what people want to see. It's, I can look back at my articles from when I first started Fastai and watch them progress and see, and plot out, okay, well, I started at tabular and then I went into computer vision for a little bit and then I went to inference and then I went over here and over here. And that roadmap is really what you want for your articles. That is how you document what you're learning.
Absolutely. So if I were to document your journey, you were working at a library while doing FastAI, not being disrespectful to your journey, and you found this course online that your father had insisted you to try, but you didn't, and later you did. And now you're also working remotely. You did an internship. How did you get the internship? You were studying marine biology earlier. You transitioned into this world of machine learning. How did you get an internship in this field? How was FastAI helpful? How did you apply? What got you through?
So they had scouted me through the forums, but um, I had done a lot of work at the time. This is, a year and a half ago or so whenever they scouted me, because normally whenever you get scouted for internships and stuff like that, they start looking, almost a year in advance sometimes. And this was just whenever I had started getting into FastAI. The key things that helped me get noticed were, doing little code fest competitions, little weekend hackathons. One model we made was the fake news detector. Asterisks on that one, obviously. But it was just a ULM fit model, and I showed, here's how to apply it for this problem. What are the ethical standpoints of it? And really get a good, well-rounded project out of it. And then the second project that they really noticed on was not even FastAI related. I had used YOLO Darknet to do this competition for Lockheed Martin. And we didn't win the competition. We had scored, decently high on the leaderboard, and I had done a different approach that, other people might not have done. Just for a little general idea into what I was doing, we were trying to find the center of essentially a square. And rather than do regression, we were trying to find the four corners on a gate.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than do image regression where it was, okay, I find point A, point B, point C, point D, I converted that into a box. And the center of the box was the point. It's a very simplistic and strange idea, but it worked really well. And so as a result, those two combined plus my, activity on...
How did they find about your unique approach? Did you write a blog post? Did you publish this anywhere?
So they had found me mostly through my posts on the forum and just, questions I had. And, as I had mentioned before with, writing blog posts, sort of documenting through time my growth based on my forum posts and my forum contributions. And then on top of that, along the way, there were a few cool projects that I did that they looked at and liked. And, that from there, they kind of went, okay, I followed this person really, really well through the forums. And, I've seen his growth. I've seen the level he's at. I want someone like him to be on my, internship team. And so they extended an offer, which I graciously, accepted. And, from there, now I'm working for them part-time after the internship. But the forum presence, I can safely say alone is what helped me get 99% of the way there.
So you
You
didn't
know,
apply anywhere. They essentially approach you just because they took note. And this is just to point out to people. Radik and I have discussed this. I try to mention this out loud, but this is the amazing magic that happens in the community if you just try to help people without being transactional, without any intention. You still happen to get job roles, job offers, or just interesting projects out of it at times.
absolutely. You know, and I think the key reason as to why is first, it says a lot about you. You know, it shows that you're very passionate about what you're doing. And, you know, passionate people tend to do much better on projects than people that are, you know, sort of, you have to go do this. You have to do this. Well, it's okay. I got to go do this, but this is cool. You know, I can learn something. And the other thing is, you're documenting your knowledge when you do that. You know, if you hide it behind a transactional piece, then that's between you and now your customer. And so that doesn't really act as a living resume. You would honestly be very, very surprised at how many companies are paying attention to who is on the Fastai forums and paying attention to, you know, who's posting, who's helping, who's asking what. There's a lot of big names that you will be very surprised about. But that's just because Fastai is, you know, if you want to do leading state of the art stuff, Fastai helps you get 99% of the way there. And so companies are very interested in that, you know, and so it always assume that whatever you write on the forums might potentially get seen by someone that could be your future boss. That puts a lot of pressure on you. I know. That's a terrible train of mind to think about that because then you'll be afraid to post anything. But do it with the guise of potentially what you write can be seen by someone that can help kickstart your career.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
much better way to put it.
yeah, but I'm sure most of the people just out do it out of enjoyment. Just the love of the welcoming community, and many people have gotten very good offers out of it. It's been discussed on the podcast as well with a few of the fellows, and I think it'll continue to happen.
Absolutely. No, you know, I think that's what's special about the Fast AI community. If it wasn't such a welcoming community and welcoming experience, I really don't think that this would be possible. Because, you know, it would be a realm of toxicity and everyone's, you know, downplaying on everyone else for silly mistakes, whereas now it's an opportunity for everyone to grow. You
Definitely.
know,
What's something you learned out of? I know we can't dive much into the internship experience. You worked with FastAI in production. What was that experience like? What learnings came out of that? Getting paid for using or for writing FastAI code.
what was that experience like? So my internship might be a little different than other people's. But generally, how mine was scoped around was they had a few different ideas that they wanted me to try. And so I did Fast AI for like the first 3.5 weeks of my 12-week internship, and that was it. I didn't use Fast AI again. And the reason for that is the role of an internship isn't about showing off your skills. It's not about showing, you know, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? It's about learning. The whole guise behind internships, I believe, is just, you know, well, okay, he's a really bright kid. I want to see if he can go learn something completely new and throw him into the deep end, which is exactly what happened to me. The project that I had been put on was very much so in the realm of NLP in an aspect that I had never worked with ever before. And so it was a very different experience for me, you know, but sir, can you hear the banging?
I can. That's Zach's cat for the audience, but that's great.
He has decided to eat now. But anyways, it if you're just getting started in FastAI, or if the company is very much so actively using FastAI, they might ask you to do something in it. That was definitely the case here. That's why my first project was using FastAI, because they really do incorporate FastAI into their production system. Don't stress over if they're using FastAI or not, because at the end of the day, FastAI is a framework. And so if they have you using PyTorch, if they have you using TensorFlow, well, it'd be easier if you're doing PyTorch, but first just ask them, like, hey, I have skills in FastAI. This is a problem that I can solve in FastAI, and I can get you a PyTorch model at the end. Can I use it? You'd be amazed at how easy that is, even though it might seem daunting, because it's, it is your advisor, it is your boss, and you're basically saying, like, can I deviate from the plan? But it's a way for you to show off your skills and learn something in the process. For me, that was definitely the case, because even though it was doing NLP stuff, the original project that they had done did it in like FastAI 0.7, and they just wanted me to revisit the project and see, could I improve it, or what different approaches would I have done differently. It was a very open-ended question that they had asked me. And so, well, what did I learn there? I learned, okay, here's how to convert FastAI 0.7 code into FastAI 2, how to convert FastAI 1 code into FastAI 2. Very unintentional learning moments that really then help you hone your skills in FastAI, as well as helps the company out, because, hey, now their code's been upgraded to the newest version. So, yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Okay. This is a repeat question, always the last question on the podcast. Your biggest advice to newcomers on FastAI?
Well, you can cut this part out until I just answer, but I'm going to break my one rule. Start with Walk with FastAI. Start with Walk with FastAI 2 and get through the first few lectures. And I don't normally advertise my stuff before Jeremy's, but I've been noticing that people can get a lot more familiar with the API before jumping into the course. Tends to help. If you've done FastAI version 1 before and you want to get into FastAI version 2, then go watch the course, and go learn from that. But I mean, I've poured, my heart and soul into that thing to basically try and get anyone good at FastAI. And I really think that it does a decent job. From there, though, absolutely go into the newest course. It follows Jeremy's book, which is also available, Jeremy and Sylvan's book, which is available for free online, because it really hits some important topics relating to, how you train your models, how you interpret your models, what assumptions is FastAI making and why. In the most recent iteration, they now incorporated the machine learning course into the actual practical deep learning course, which was a fantastic improvement to the tabular section, because it kind of helped tie everything together. Mm-hmm. So to sort of reiterate, if you're new, start off either watching or just reading a few of my first few notebooks on the sort of framework, and then migrate into Jeremy's course. And then from there, like, pick a route you want to do. If you want to more focus on audio, all right, get yourself really, really strong with the data block API. And then either go watch my audio lecture or go look on the audio subforums. The key to being successful with FastAI now is getting really, really good with the data block API. That doesn't mean understanding how everything works. It's how to make everything work, which a lot of people get confused about. That's really the key to success with the framework.
That's a great point. The book is called Fast Book. anything else, if you Google it, you'll be able to find the links or find them in the show notes. Zach, you're the Zach Mueller on Twitter, Zach Mueller on YouTube as well. Any other platforms where the people can connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, but no, that's about it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks again, Zach, for your time, for everything you've been doing for the Fastai community, and for being the nicer moderator out of us two.
Oh, well, no, thank you for having me on here, Seem. It's always fun being on here.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give it a review or feel free to shoot me a message. You can find all of the social media links in the description. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.